Luigi Mangione update. Pam Bondi is seeking the death penalty for him. Luigi Mangione is on trial for the premeditated murder of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. Now, Luigi is a rich, attractive young man who did what a lot of people actually wanted to do. He is very popular with Gen Z and people who are frustrated with dealing with the American healthcare system. Definitely check out that video I did on the growing cult of Luigi Mangione. Now, this is from a New York Times article on the subject. Prosecutors to seek death penalty for Mangione, Bondi says. Okay. Attorney General Pam Bondi said on Tuesday that she would seek the death penalty for Luigi Mangione, who was charged with murdering a United Healthcare executive in Manhattan last year, part of a push to revive the widespread use of capital punishment in federal cases. Ms. Bondi said her decision came after careful consideration and was in line with President Trump's executive order directing the Justice Department to renew death penalty requests after President Biden declared a moratorium on capital punishment for most federal offenders in 2021. It says, like down here, Luigi Mangione's murder of Brian Thompson, an innocent man and father of 2 young children, was a premeditated, cold-blooded assassination that shocked America, Ms. Bondi said in a statement. Bondi says that the killing shocked America, but keep in mind, you can be surprised by something horrible or you can be surprised by something good, like a surprise party. Okay, back to this article. It says down here, to allow for the execution of Mr. Mangione, federal prosecutors would have to convince a group of jurors to vote unanimously for him to be put to death. The task may be difficult, especially given the public support Mr. Mangione has received since the murder. In 2023, prosecutors sought to put to death Sayfullo Saipov, who was convicted of killing 8 people in Manhattan on behalf of the Islamic State. A jury could not find against him unanimously. Instead, he was sentenced to life in prison. Now, Luigi's defense lawyer responded to the Justice Department seeking the death penalty. Now, this is from the lawyer's official website that they had to build because too many people were calling them and writing them asking for information. Okay, here's the statement. This is a statement from Karen Friedman Agnafilo, who is Luigi Mangione's lawyer. She says, by seeking to murder Luigi Mangione, the Justice Department has moved from the dysfunctional to the barbaric. Their decision to execute Luigi is political and goes against the recommendation of the local federal prosecutors, the law, and historical precedent. While claiming to protect against murder, the federal government moves to commit the premeditated state-sponsored murder of Luigi. By doing this, they are defending the broken, immoral, and murderous healthcare industry that continues to terrorize the American people. We are prepared to fight these federal charges brought by a lawless Justice Department, as well as the New York State charges and the Pennsylvania charges and anything else they want to pile on Luigi. This is a corrupt web of government dysfunction and one-upsmanship. Luigi is caught in a high-stakes game of tug-of-war between state and federal prosecutors, except the trophy is a young man's life. Trump has put to death 13 out of the 16 people who have been put to death federally since the death penalty was reintroduced in 1988. He is not afraid to execute people. The last one was in 2021, right before he left office. So according to Death Penalty Information Center, the last person executed by the federal government was a man named Dustin John Higgins, and that was January 16th, 2021. He was convicted of ordering the 1996 murder of 3 Maryland women after arguing with them in the apartment, and there's actually controversy as to whether or not he did this. Ooh, there's egg on someone's face if he didn't, huh? Now, the risk of putting Luigi to death is that you'll make a martyr out of him. People are already following Luigi, donating to his commissary, and supporting him during his trial. And it's not just because he is handsome. I remind you of his manifesto. Frankly, these parasites simply had it coming. A reminder, the U.S. has the #1 most expensive healthcare system in the world, yet we rank number 42 in life expectancy. United is the indecipherable largest company in the U.S. by market cap, behind only Apple, Google, Walmart. It has grown and grown, but has our life expectancy? No. The reality is these indecipherable have simply gotten too powerful, and they continue to abuse our country for immense profit because the American public has allowed them to get away with it. Obviously, the problem is more complex, but I do not have space. And frankly, I do not pretend to be the most qualified person to lay out the full argument. But many have illuminated the corruption and greed, e.g. Rosenthal, Moore, decades ago, and the problems simply remain. It is not an issue of awareness at this point, but clearly power games at play. Evidently, I am the first to face it with such brutal honesty. Weren't you, though? Now, this is a short and to the point manifesto. I think it's a solid one. I really hate a run-on manifesto. Explain it to me like I'm a 5, okay? This is the internet age and Luigi got the assignment. People can relate to what Luigi did. If you've had to deal with the bureaucracy in healthcare, Luigi's approach can be very appealing. Yes, technically it was terrorism, but his supporters will say that there was not a legal way to make these changes within the system. I think the Bill Burr, Ben Shapiro debate really did show what the two sides of this argument are. Bill Burr said this. He said this about Luigi's crime, alleged crime. None of these news programs are talking about the incredible lack of empathy from the general public about this because of how these insurance companies treat people when they're at their most vulnerable. I love that fucking CEOs are fucking afraid right now. You should be. By and large, you're all a bunch of selfish, greedy, fucking pieces of shit, and a lot of you are mass murderers. You just don't pull the trigger. That's why it looks clean. Said on his Monday morning podcast, I agree. And Ben Shapiro responded by saying, Bill Burr has become woke. Over time, I think he became embarrassed that many people on the right thought he was very funny, so he decided he was going to go woke. That is nonsense. Nonsense. Bill Burr responded by saying, who's Ben Shapiro? I've never heard of this guy. Now, Bill Burr has been consistent on this topic for over a decade now, since I've been listening to his Monday morning podcast. Ben Shapiro has clearly never listened to the podcast, and he doesn't know Bill's position on politics and greedy billionaires raping the country. This is what he usually says. Now, on my last video about Luigi Mangione, people got really upset with me using the word terrorist to describe him. And I think their actual beef is with the definition of the word terrorist, which I did not invent. What Luigi did was terrorism. But the question is terrorism ever necessary? Now, comparisons have been made between Luigi Mangione and John Brown. John Brown was an abolitionist who fought in Bleeding, Kansas, and committed terrorist acts in the lead up to the Civil War. John Brown did things that are morally much worse than anything Luigi did. Some people even say that John Brown sparked the Civil War by inflaming passions in the North. The Civil War, by the way, freed the slaves. Okay, and I know it's more nuanced than that, but I don't really want to get into it here. It's not the time or the place. The Civil War did ultimately free the slaves and pass the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments to the Constitution. And yes, I know that Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation to keep France and England out of that war, but that is not what this video is about. And I know, yes, I know that sharecropping continued for decades after slavery, and in some ways it was worse than slavery, but that is also not what this video is about. The point is, was John Brown and his terrorist act ultimately a good or a bad thing? That's the point that Luigi's defenders are making. And sorry I had to get into the history weeds there, but if you make any point on YouTube, there's always the, well, actually, the Emancipation Proclamation didn't free any slaves person in the comments section. And see, things like this, they're just shiny objects for intellectuals to get distracted by, like some kind of nerdy cat. The argument is it okay to go outside the law to accomplish a greater good? That's all I'm trying to get at here. And what we have going on with American healthcare right now is not the same as slavery. However, healthcare is a deeply flawed system. People are denied coverage, they're denied care. People are forced to stick with employers they don't like just so they can have some healthcare. And that is a problem. And it's a problem that affects the working and middle class. Plus, we have voted for change for years. We tried to do it legally for years. It's just not happening through the system. And that's why people see Luigi as a hero. Now, a GoFundMe for Luigi Mangione had to be taken down because apparently it violated their terms of service. And I'm sure it did, but if it didn't, would we really know? I haven't read the terms of service anyway. There is a Give, Send, Go account in his name that has racked up $720,000 for his defense. So as you can see, he is very popular. Now, here is a statement from Politico about whether Trump will lose Gen Z if he executes Luigi Mangione. Politico put this tiny, tiny little blurb in their Playbook PM, and it pissed people off. They said, how Trump loses Gen Z. AG Pam Bondi announced that she wants the prosecution to seek the death penalty for Luigi Mangione if he's convicted, per ABC. Mangione has been charged with the murder of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, which Bondi decried as a premeditated, cold-blooded assassination and an act of political violence. They simply titled it How Trump Loses Gen Z. And look how mad Fox got about that. Them even suggesting doing this might make him less popular. Look at the people who are saying it. Anyway. Now, look, I think Politico asks a fair question. People think in stories. They don't think in stats. So if Trump executes their hero, of course, they're not going to like him that much. But how much did those people dislike him before? And is there much of an overlap in that demographic? Only time will tell. Now, in this humble YouTuber's opinion, executing Luigi Mangione will turn him into a martyr like John Brown, and people will start wearing silkscreen prints with his face on it, like Che Guevara, and his poster will hang in high school and college dormitories for hundreds of kids to smoke joints to for the next few decades. So that's basically it. He'll be a folk hero, and he's already kind of a folk hero, but this will just solidify it. So what do you think? Will the jury vote to execute Luigi Mangione? And also, are you on team Bill Burr or on team Ben Shapiro? For the sake of YouTube fairness, I'm not allowed to tell you which side I'm on. You might be able to guess.